Yo, what is going on, guys? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. So in honor of Andy Reid making his fourth Super Bowl and playing his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles, in the Super Bowl, I thought we'd look back at Andy Reid's career and list off his top 5 best teams he's ever been the head coach of. Let's jump right into the list. So before we do, though, I had some trouble picking between a couple teams for the number 5 spot. Obviously, he has 4 Super Bowl teams. Those 4 teams are all going to be 1 through 4. Stick till the end of the video to see who ranks in at which position. But for this number 5 slot, I was picking between some of those early 2000s Eagles teams that went to 4 straight NFC Championships. Even that late 2000s Eagles team with Shady McCoy was really good. And some of those Alex Smith-led Kansas City Chiefs teams were absolutely elite. But how can I not have the 2018 Kansas City Chiefs coming in at number 5? So this was Patrick Mahomes' second year in the league, first year starting. They had a 12-4 regular season record. In a losing effort, this was by far Andy Reid's team's best performance in a conference championship game in which they lost. Not only did they lose to the eventual Super Bowl champion Patriots, but they lost in overtime 31-37. This was a fantastic game. They'd actually lost to the Patriots previously in this season as well, but man, was this a hard-fought game. Patrick Mahomes' arguably best playoff game to date today. You can even argue that this 2018 Chiefs team should be ranked higher on the list. They beat the Colts in the playoffs, and let's get into some of the key players they had. So just as I said, Patrick Mahomes, man, he had 5,000 yards this season and 50 touchdowns. Out of Andy Reid's coaching career, this is by far the best single season performance from a player under the Andy Reid coaching tree. Absolutely phenomenal year by Patrick Mahomes. I'm not sure if we'll ever see anything like it ever again. Kareem Hunt was their running back this year. Really good runner. I would say he was probably their third best running back that Andy Reid has ever had. They had Tyreek Hill, who was elite this season. Sammy Watkins, probably his last best year here in 2018. He played a key role in some of those earlier Alex Smith, Andy Reid teams, and he was also on some of the later Patrick Mahomes teams as well, but I think this was his best year with Patrick Mahomes. He had Travis Kelce, and then some key defensive players were Dee Ford, Chris Jones, and Reggie Ragnow. Now, this team didn't rank higher because, one, they didn't make the Super Bowl, and all 4 of the other teams did. But talking about a little bit of nuance here, and another reason why they didn't make it, really is because of their defense. Their defense just was not a Super Bowl caliber defense this year, which is why they did not make the Super Bowl. You had the Patriots drop 38 points on their head, and then the next game, the Patriots can only score 13 points. So I think the Chiefs this year proved that they weren't a championship caliber defense, but nonetheless, still a fantastic team. So coming in at number 4, it's going to be the 2022-2023 Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, guys, this year's Chiefs team. Not going to give an official Super Bowl prediction in this video. Man, I don't think I've ever been this 50-50 on a Super Bowl in my entire life. I know I'm not that old, guys, but man, the Super Bowl is such a toss-up. The Eagles are slight favorites. I think the Eagles have a better roster. I think the Eagles have more paths to victory, but when you have the best player and the best coach in the game, you always have a fighting chance. So the Kansas City Chiefs very well could win a Super Bowl this year and even move up further on this list. But they had a 14-3 regular season record, which is the second best record Andy Reid has ever had as a coach, tied for the most amount of wins he's ever had with 14. He's playing in the Super Bowl against the Eagles, as I just said, his former team, the inspiration for this video. He beat the Jaguars and Bengals in the playoffs. Guys, I would argue this year's Kansas City Chiefs team, excluding that Super Bowl team, had the most impressive 2 playoff wins pre-Super Bowl. I think this Bengals team is probably the highest caliber of opponent that Andy Reid has ever beat in the playoffs, period. I think that this year's Bengals team would probably beat the 49ers team they beat in the Super Bowl. I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for saying that, but I am a big Bengals believer, and the Chiefs beat them and proved to be the better team. So some key players from this year's Kansas City Chiefs team. Obviously, you have Patrick Mahomes at the helm. You have Isaiah Pacheco, who's been so good this year. I think he's going to play a key role in the Super Bowl. Jarrett McKinnon was really good coming out of the backfield this year, still really good with the ball in his hands. You got Juju Smith-Schuster, who is probably not the best receiving core that Andy Reid has ever had in his tenure. You had Travis Kelce, who had one of his best years of his career, still kicking it, still elite. Some defenders, you have Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and Nick Bolton leading this team in tackles. So the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs, great team, Super Bowl caliber team, very well could win it this Sunday. So coming in at number 3, we have the 2020 Kansas City Chiefs. I struggled between the number 4 and number 3 spot. A couple reasons why I put the 2020 Chiefs above this year's team. A lot of it has to do, I'm not going to lie, with the healthy roster. I think a healthy 2020 Kansas City Chiefs does end up beating this year's Chiefs team for a number of reasons. One of them, they had a 14-2 regular season record, which is Andy Reid's best record he's ever had, which is a shame because they lost in the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers. Man, this Buccaneers Super Bowl, I understand they kind of got slaughtered. I thought it was a really bad game plan by Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. They beat the Bills and the Browns in the playoffs, and the way they beat the Bills in that AFC Championship game was kind of dinking and dunking, running the ball, and they completely went away from that for some reason in the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers. Some of their key players this year were Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was really good in his rookie year. You had Tyreek Hill's last year in Kansas City, Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, Tyrann Mathieu, Chris Jones, and Frank Clark. Just to preface, Tyreek Hill's last Super Bowl appearance with the Chiefs, not his last year with the Chiefs. But this defense was good, but again, you saw against the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, they kind of got gashed. Nonetheless, a great team. Mecole Hardman was really explosive this year. I had him in fantasy. It seems like every time I started him in 2020, he didn't do good. Every time he was on my bench, he had 20 points. That's just kind of how it goes. So going in at number 2 on this list, guys, you might have been able to guess it already. It's the 2004 Philadelphia Eagles. Let me tell you why this 2004 Philadelphia Eagles is the best Andy Reid team to never win a Super Bowl. So they had a 13-3 regular season record. They're coming off of 3 straight NFC Championship losses at this point. This 2004 team is finally the team that got over the hump and went to the Super Bowl. They lost in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, but guys, they only lost by 3 points. It was a phenomenal Super Bowl performance. Andy Reid was really good with his game plan in this game. They just barely came up short against an all-time great Patriots dynasty. So they beat the Vikings and the Falcons in the playoffs. A little bit forgettable, not the best opponents Andy Reid has ever beaten in the playoffs in his tenure. Some of the key players on this team were Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook, who you can argue is the best running back that Andy Reid has ever played with. Maybe you want to argue LaShawn McCoy, but Brian Westbrook, guys, especially this year, this was his first elite year, was elite coming out of the backfield as a receiver, had over 700 yards receiving. So good this year, guys. Terrell Owens is arguably the best receiver talent-wise, pound for pound-wise, that Andy Reid has ever coached. I know you can argue Travis Kelce. He's kind of a tight end, though. I know you can argue Tyreek Hill. But guys, Terrell Owens was so good this year. He played 14 regular season games. He broke his leg, then ended up coming back and having one of the best, most memorable Super Bowl performances from a loser in NFL history. Was phenomenal in that game. So some of the other receivers is Todd Pickinson. He was pretty solid this year. And then on the defensive end, you had an elite secondary duo of Brian Dawkins and Lito Shepard. So these guys were first-team All-Pros, one of the best defenses, if not the best defense Andy Reid has ever coached. And that's why I put them above all these Kansas City teams, is because those Kansas City teams that I mentioned before, this 2004 Eagles team, I mean, this Eagles team blows those teams out of the water defensively. They were legit winning games because of their defense, and you can't really say that about any Kansas City-led Andy Reid team. So coming in at number 1, guys, you already know, it's a 2019 Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid's only Super Bowl win as per recording of this video. So he had a 12-4 regular season record. Again, he won the Super Bowl against the 49ers. He beat the Texans and Titans in the playoffs. I think this is his second most impressive pre-Super Bowl run. Again, like I said, I think this year is his most impressive, but I think his second most impressive is this year. He beat the Titans, who were honestly really good this year. They beat the Ravens in the divisional round to face the Chiefs. So you beat the Texans in the divisional round. They were up something like 24-0. This was a really good team. I know Bill O'Brien kind of gets shit for being a horrible coach, but man, this Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson-led Texans team with DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt at the helm, they were really good, guys. So for the Chiefs to come back in that game and win it, I think that might have been even more impressive than their Super Bowl victory against the 49ers, coming down from 10 points and end up convincingly winning that game. So some key players on this team: Patrick Mahomes was great this year again. Damian Williams, potential Super Bowl MVP snub. He was really good in the playoffs, guys. Tyreek Hill was good in the playoffs as well. You had Sammy Watkins, really last solid year. I don't think he was as good as 2018 Sammy Watkins, but he was a contributor nonetheless. Again, you had Travis Kelce, you had Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, and Chris Jones. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today.